In the previous class, we spoke about the different layers of the alimentary canal, isn't it? We spoke about, we have mucosa, we have submucosa, we have Muscularis externa, as well as we have the serosa. But then we discussed in detail about a layer called as the mucosa, isn't it? We discussed about this layer, mucosa, right? This layer, right? A quick recap. We said that mucosa is made up of three important layers. The innermost layer is made up of simple columnar epithelia in the stomach or small intestines, right? But then it changes from one place to the other place. For example, this layer is made up of stratified squamous epithelia in the mouth or in the anus, right? And then we said that then we have a loose connective tissue called as a lamina propria, okay, where you will find all the glands, okay, and the lymphoid tissue. And then we said that we have a layer called as a muscularis mucosa, right, which is a muscular layer present over here. That's what we learned in the previous class. Today we'll talk about the submucosa. What is a submucosa? Submucosa is a layer, as you can see here. It is just present beneath the mucus layer. This one is a submucosa, isn't it? So now sub means below. So below the mucosa, right? Below the mucus layer. Okay. Now what is this layer known for? If you see here, all the big vessels, whether it is a vein, whether it's a big artery which supplies to the intestines or stomach or to the gut, right? Alimentary canal. Whether we talk about lymphoid vessels, right? We call them lacteals, right? They all are present in the, which layer? The submucosa layer, okay? It is made up of the connective tissue, okay? And other than that, you will also find the lymphoid follicles. Remember the mold mucosa associated lymphoid tissue? That also can be found in the submucosa layer.
So they are inside this layer, right?
This is the mucosa. Then we have submucosa like this. Look at this hand is a submucosa. So this is the innermost layer. This is just below the mucus layer, right? So we are going from inside to outside. The day I explained it, I told you we are going from inside to outside, not from outside to inside, right? So this is the second layer of the alimentary canal called as the submucosa, okay? And what is so important in this layer? If you see here, this layer also has these yellow colored what? The nerve plexuses. What do we call them? Nerve plexus. They're like the junction of nerves, okay? And what do we call them? We call them submucosal nerve plexus. Now you might think that what is the function of the submucosal nerve plexus? Okay, this, first of all, you have to remember that your gut or alimentary canal is somewhat special. Why is it special? Because it has its own nerve supply. It is not dependent on the central nervous system. Okay, so as a reason, it is sometimes called as the second brain. One brain is this brain, right? And then it's called as the second brain because it's not dependent on your spinal cord or your brain. Though it is dependent on the autonomic nervous system, right? We say that we have a sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Remember, in the parasympathetic nervous system, we said that whenever we are there's no stress, we are relaxing, we eat our lunch or a dinner, and after that when we relax, it's the parasympathetic nervous system which will activate, right, and will cause the food to digest properly and we'll be soothing and resting. Okay, but just because of these plenty of neurons present in the gut, right, we call it a second brain, or we call it a gut brain. Okay, have you ever heard about we sometimes say that I have a strong gut feeling. that she is going to give this question in the midterm? Do you say this? Yes, ladies online. Have you ever said this? I have a strong gut feeling that she's not going to do this. Do we say all this? Yes, isn't it? So why do we say the gut feeling? You get all your feelings in the brain. Why do you say gut feeling? What is the reason behind that? The reason behind is that is, as I said, that this is called as the what? Second brain. Scientists are still trying to find out, maybe there is some connection, For example, disease like Parkinson's disease. Okay. Scientists are trying to find out some connection that, oh my God, there should be something with the gut also, which affects our nervous system as well. And in Parkinson's disease, they've seen that when they get symptoms of the Parkinson's disease, 4 to 5 years before that, they have, constipation before that. So it has something to do with the neurons of the gut. We have billions of neurons present in the gut. Yes, ladies, you understand? Did you know all this before, that we have a second brain? Gut brain, did you know this? No, not. Right? Of course. So now you know that, yes, it is so independent, right? And it can do many activities just by itself. Okay, it just needs the help of the sympathetic nervous system, right? So we'll have plenty of neurons. We have almost more than 20 neurotransmitters, like acetylcholine and serotonin. All these have been discovered in our gut, right? So that shows us that how independent it is and how many, as I said, there are billions of neurons present in our gut, okay? So this submucosal nerve plexus is part of that neurons, right? Those nerves. Now you might ask me a question, what is the function of it? Isn't it? You might have a question, oh, what is the function of the submucosal nerve plexus? Okay, its function is the gastric secretions. Okay, so whatever endocrine, or we'll talk about the physiology later on in a while. So whatever endocrine or exocrine juices which we release, because we do release a lot of hormones and we do release a lot of enzymes, right? In the form of an exocrine gland, right? We have an exocrine gland there as well. So all those, we know the endocrine gland needs some stimulus, right? So the stimulus comes from the submucosal nerve plexus. Then only they release an enzyme. Then only they release a hormone, right? So it takes care of the secretions part. Okay? Okay. That is a submucosal nerve plexus. Online ladies, did you all understand about plexus is just a junction of nerves, as you can see in the diagram as well. Okay, great. Now moving on further to the next layer of the muscle, okay, just below this, the third layer, this was layer 1, this was layer 2, and this is layer 3, right? This is called as a muscularis externa. So this is, like, as you can see here, this is a real layer, right? Where you have a smooth muscle. Okay? So if you remember, we discussed in the previous class that the muscularis externa of the pharynx, what is it made up of? It's made up of skeletal muscle, remember? And then we discussed about the esophagus, right? We said that esophagus has, the first half is what? Skeletal muscle. The last half is what? Smooth muscle. In between, you will have both smooth as well as the skeletal muscle, right? About the esophagus. But after that, as we go down and down, we'll just have only the smooth muscle, which is called as muscularis externa. Okay. Now this muscularis externa is made up of 2 layers of muscles. Okay. We have, okay, one layer, one internal layer, okay, which is made up of cells, muscular cells, which are what? Circular in shape. Okay, So we have what? The inner circular layer, okay? And then the outer layers are a little longitudinal, you know? They look something like tall cells, right? So this is the what? Circular layer and outer longitudinal layer, isn't it? Right? So what happens? Alternate contractions of these two layers will produce a movement called as the peristalsis, right? Remember, peristalsis is the movement through which food is passed all the way from your pharynx to esophagus to stomach to small to large, from large intestine, even the waste products, right? So peristalsis is like found everywhere in the gut, everywhere in the alimentary canal. But how exactly will this peristalsis take place without the help of a neuron, without the help of the something from the nerve, right? So we do have something called as the mesenteric nerve plexus. Oh my God, what happened to this? Ladies, wait a minute. Okay, good. Okay, so what is the mesenteric nerve plexus? Okay, so you have to understand the word mesenteric. Okay, my means, if I say these two, my means what? The muscle. Okay, enteric means the gut. What's wrong with it? Gut. Okay, so mesenteric. So muscle in the gut, what does it have? It also has the nerves. Where can I find those nerves? You see here these nerves? Let me get another color. Online ladies, do you understand? Any questions till now? Great. Okay. I'm going to show you the mesenteric nerve plexus. Okay. Look at this. We have one more nerve plexus. What's wrong with it? Look at this. The blue ones, right? They are called as mesenteric nerve plexus. So where are they present? They are present in the which layer? Muscularis externa layer. But where in the muscularis externa? What is their function? First of all, where they are present, their location. They're present between these two layers. That means if I have this circular layer and if I have this what? Longitudinal layer. So the nerve plexus is found somewhere over here between the two layers. What is it doing? What is the function of it? These neurons, the way when we are able to move the muscles only, when the motor neurons innervate them, isn't it? And then only I can move my muscles. Similarly, these two muscles can show alternate contractions only if they get what? The innervation from the what? Mesenteric nerve plexus. Obviously from the neuron. So that means mesenteric nerve plexus is responsible for what? For the motility. What is motility? Motility is movement. What is movement? Movement of what? Food throughout the gastric tract. Movement of waste throughout the gastric tract. That is the responsibility of the mesenteric nerve plexus. So the mucosal one controlling what? Secretions, isn't it? Secretions, absorptions, while as the mesenteric one controlling the movement, right? So that the inner circular and the outer longitudinal can alternately contract and food can move throughout the intestines or stomach or esophagus. Did you understand? Yes, ladies? Are we all okay? Did we all understand? Good. Alhamdulillah. No questions till now, right? But does anyone remember that in the muscularis externa of the pharynx, what was it made up of? The Muscularis externa of pharynx, of throat. What was it made up of? Skeletal muscles, absolutely nude, isn't it? I said that, right? We're able to swallow it and then we can bring it back also. So it's a skeletal muscle. So is your, I just showed it there as well, right? So is your esophagus starting part, right? And the middle part is the combination of both. Last one is the smooth. Cartilage, where is the cartilage? Hypha? Do we have a cartilage in the throat? I never knew that we have a cartilage also in the throat, Hypha. Are you still with the respiratory system? She's still revising respiratory system, I think. So cartilage is there in the trachea. So whether we talk about pharynx or the larynx, it's just the pharynx, especially just the muscular. Larynx, we do have the cartilages, right? That we learned in the respiratory system. Right? And then, of course, we have the last layer, the fourth layer, which is the what? Serosa. This is not something new to us. We already know about the serosa, isn't it? We've been learning it from previous semester. It's just a serous membrane, which is made up of two layers. The inner visceral, and outer parietal layer, isn't it? That's what we have been learning, right? So, why do we call it peritoneum? Remember, the serous layer has different names in different parts of the body. In the lungs, we call it what? Pleural membrane. In the heart, we call it pericardium. But in the digestive system, we call it what? The peritoneum. So this is a specific name for the serous membrane for the present in the abdominal cavity. Clear till now? Now, where do we find the visceral one? Visceral is present. It's like this is my organ. Suppose this hand is my organ. Okay. So inside, what do I have? The mucosa. Then what do we have? Submucosa. Then what do we have? Muscularis externa. Then this is like my outermost layer, right? So let me show you with the tissue. With the tissues. So see, look at this. So this tissue is hugging my hand, isn't it? Which layer is this? Visceral, isn't it? Visceral peritoneum, right? Then let's say this is my stomach. My hand is my stomach, right? So this tissue is what? Visceral peritoneum. It is present in the cavity, right? So the cavity is lined by what? Another layer, which is called as the parietal peritoneum, right? Let me show it to the online girls as well. Okay, this is like the inner, ladies, this is the inner circular layer. Okay, as you can see over here, this is the inner circular layer of the muscularis externa and outer longitudinal layer, right? Between the two, what do you have? The nerve plexus, the myoenteric nerve plexus. So we were talking about the peritoneal membrane, right? So if this is the organ, right? This organ, so we have done it previously many times, right? So if this is the organ, it is surrounded by the, what is this? This is the visceral peritoneum, right? Then we might be having a body wall. Let's say this is the body wall, right? And this body wall is covered by another membrane. What is that membrane called, girls? The purple one is what? Is it parietal or visceral peritoneum? It's the parietal. So we have been discussing it previously as well, right? So this is the purple one is the parietal peritoneum, right? Which layer of peritoneum produces the serous fluid? Because in between the two layers, we have this cavity, right? This cavity is filled with the fluid, okay? And that fluid is called as the what? Peritoneal fluid, right? And that fluid is produced by the visceral peritoneum, okay? This is something which we already discussed previously. Now, another new word which you don't know about it is the mesentery. Okay? What is a mesentery? What's wrong with it? What is a mesentery? Okay, this mesentery. Okay. First of all, as you can see over here, the pink one, the pink colored thing which you see over here, this is all your parietal peritoneum. Okay. But mesentery is something like, we have small intestines, isn't it? Okay. As you can see here, these are small intestines, small intestines, small intestines, small intestines, right? Or this might be this is the colon, right? Transverse colon. Okay. So as you can see here, whether it's a small intestine or the large intestine, they are holded or attached to the body wall. You can't imagine that my small intestines are hanging here in the abdomen, are they? They're not. Imagine if I move, my intestines will also move here and there, isn't it? Does it ever happen? As I jump, I skip, my intestines are also moving. They move from right hand side to the left hand side. Does it ever happen? Never. Isn't it? So that means they're attached somewhere. Okay? They're attached to each other. They're attached to the body wall. Okay? So that is the mesentery. What is a mesentery? As you can see here, mesentery is a double layer. Do you see it's double layered? Mesentery is a double layered peritoneal membrane. Again, it's a serous membrane, right? But this mesentery is there because it can hold the organs to each other. It can hold the organs to the body wall. Okay? Especially your small intestines or the large intestines. Because we don't want these intestines to get tangled with each other, isn't it? So we don't want them to tangle with each other. That is why they are attached with the body wall or to each other. We call it the mesentery. What do we call it? The mesentery. Is it okay, everyone? Did you all understand mesentery? What is the function of mesentery? The function of mesentery is to attach the small intestines or large intestines to the body wall or to attach them to each other so that when we move around, our intestines should not move or should not be tangled. Okay. What are they made up of, mesenteries? They are made up of a double layer of what? Peritoneal membrane. Yes, ladies, any question about it? About the mesenteries? This mesentery is like, you all know what is Gray's Anatomy, right? So this mesentery has recently been up, they have updated, this was already there. See, mesentery was always there. But we used to consider this as a fragment, any fragmented tissue. We never knew that it has an important, importance in the abdomen, right? So Gray's Anatomy, they recently updated it that we have a new organ called as a mesentery. Okay, and a lot of research is going on these mesenteries because scientists think that, or doctors think that maybe cancer, cancer travels from one place to other place, isn't it? If one organ is infected, then the other organ is also infected, right? So we know that they travel through lymph nodes or through lymph, but scientists are trying to find out, is it possible that the things can travel, in the abdomen from one place to other place, especially cancer, through these mesenteries? Is it possible? So a lot of research is going on to this. However, about mesentery, there was, Leonardo da Vinci. He said about it long back in 1500 something, He said about these organs long back, right? But it was recently explored that yes, these mesenteries are very important because they hold the organs, right? The organs are suspended with the help of mesenteries. So even Gray's Anatomy was updated, right? And they're very rich in lymphoid follicles, thus giving us protection. Remember lymphoid follicles? Chapter number 12. lymphatic system, right? Any question about it, ladies? Till now, did you all understand what is a mesentery? Okay, then we'll soon talk about this, the lesser omentum and what is the greater omentum. Okay, but before we understand what is the lesser and the greater omentum, let's talk about the anatomy of the stomach. Okay, see, this is the stomach, isn't it? And if you see here, it has 4 parts. Okay, the part here which lies close to the heart, okay, which lies close to the heart, so we call it a, what's wrong with it? We call it a cardial part. Okay. The part is lateral to the cardial part. So this is a cardial part, lateral to it, this side. Okay, that is the fundus. The majority of the body of it. Okay, this is the body. And the last part of it is called as the pylorus. So this part is the pylorus. Okay, so pylorus is basically, this is the most active area of the stomach. Body is more into, like, you know, storage. Okay, okay. So the most active part of the stomach, where a lot of, you know, churning will take place. Once we discuss the physiology of the stomach, there's a lot of churning, mixing will take place with the digestive juices, right? So all those movements will take place in the pylorus region. So that is why I said that this is the most active region of the stomach. Okay, and once the food, which is converted into chyme, you know, a kind of a semi-solid liquid thing mixed with digestive juices and partially digested, that passes through into the next part called as a duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestines. Now, what is a sphincter? You will see that throughout our alimentary canal, we have valves, also called as sphincters. Do you remember, ladies, we spoke about valves? Let's say this is a vein. We spoke about a valve in the vein. What was the function of the valve in the vein? Or maybe valves in the heart. What was the function of valves in the heart or the vein? Prevent the backflow. Absolutely, very good. Prevent the backflow, right? Similarly, you will see that throughout the alimentary canal, we have various valves which are made up of smooth muscles, okay? Or we call them sphincters. When these sphincters contract like this, the opening is closed. When the sphincters are relaxed, the opening is open, right? We have one sphincter. Let me get another color here. We have one sphincter right over here. We call it what? Cardioesophageal sphincter, because it's present between what? Esophagus. This is esophagus, right? And between the first part of the stomach called as the cardial part. So this is a sphincter over here. So that means when food is, let me get another color. That means when food is traveling here, okay, it has to, then the sphincter will relax. The valve will relax. It's a smooth muscle valve, right? When the food reaches into this part, do you think the food is allowed to go back into the esophagus? Will it be allowed to go? Of course not, isn't it? So food will not be allowed to go back into the esophagus. That is the function of these sphincters. They play a very, very important role. Except, God forbid, when we have vomiting. Okay, when we have vomiting, at that time, food comes back from the stomach, isn't it? So at that time, this sphincter is relaxed. The muscle here is relaxed. That is why we get that an acid reflux, or sometimes we get the vomiting at that time, right? Otherwise, they're not allowed to open and bring the food back to the previous part. And then we also have one more sphincter right over here. Let me get a pen. Do you see here sphincter over here? Right over here, we have one more sphincter. We call it a pyloric sphincter, just because it's present between the pyloric part and the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. Sometimes the question says that, where do you find the pyloric sphincter? So you should know the location. Where do you find the cardioesophageal sphincter? So you should know the locations. Cardioesophageal is present between the esophagus and the first part of the stomach. And pyloric sphincter is between the pyloric part of the stomach and the first part of the esophagus. So once the food is now converted into chyme, it's all semi-solid food now, right? Once it's sent to the next part over here, okay, will it allow it to come back? Can it come back to the stomach? Of course not, right? Once the food is here, because the pyloric sphincter will close, right? And food will not be allowed to come back to the stomach. Okay. So we'll move on further as we discuss the small intestines. We'll discuss, we have the ileocecal valve or ileocecal sphincter is one more sphincter. So we'll discuss more as we move on to the small intestines and to the larger intestines. What else we need to know? Okay. If you see here, this part of the stomach is concave medially, isn't it? And this part of stomach is convex. Okay. So this is called as the lesser curvature. So this is the lesser curvature, right? And this one is the greater curvature. The convex, this is like, look at my hand. This is the convex part, isn't it? That's a greater curvature. This is a concave part. This is the lesser curvature. Okay. Now I wanted to tell you about the omentum. This omentum. This omentum. I want to tell you about this. What is this omentum? Right, this one. What's wrong with the pen? I wanted to tell you about this omentum. What is this omentum? So please pay attention. Okay. So what is an omentum? Greater omentum and the lesser omentum. Okay. This diagram is not from your book, so please do not prepare this for the exam. Okay. So if you see here, from the lesser curvature, okay, what do we have? We have a double-layered peritoneal membrane again, which is connecting what? Which is connecting to the liver. Do you see this one, the yellow color here? This is called as the lesser omentum, which is again a double-layered peritoneal membrane. Now you might think that what is the function of it, right? The lesser omentum is a peritoneal membrane which connects my what? Liver with the stomach, isn't it? So we have liver right over here, just beneath. I have a diaphragm over here, right? Beneath the diaphragm, I have a liver over here and stomach over here. So they both are connected with each other, right? By the lesser omentum. Imagine, as I said, that's the same reason. We don't want the organs to move here. And, oh, my liver has gone to the right-hand side. Oh, it has gone to the left-hand side, right? So it helps in holding the stomach and the liver together. Are we okay, ladies? Did you all understand the lesser omentum? Well, now the greater omentum. This is the greater omentum, right? Which is also called as an apron. Apron of the stomach. Look at this. This is the greater omentum. This is my what? Greater curvature of the stomach, right? So it hangs from the greater curvature of the stomach. Why is it called an apron? For example, if you're washing something in the kitchen, what do you wear? Or you're cooking something, you wear an apron, right? So that your clothes will not become dirty, isn't it? so does we have this apron covering all over here, because abdominal organs do not have any protection, do they? They don't, there's no bone over here, right? So this greater omentum is basically very, do you see it's yellow in color? Because it's very rich in what? Fat globules. That's why it's yellow in color. And in between you will see it will have lot of what? It will have lot of lymphoid follicles, which are very, and then we also have macrophages, right? Remember, lymphoid follicles is part of the mold, mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, isn't it? Right? So it's giving us protection in two times. Two things. Protecting our peritoneal cavity against various microorganisms, because it's very rich in lymphoid follicles. And number two, it is also protecting our, right, since it's rich in fat globules, right? It's covering my what? Front part of the abdomen. Okay, let me show you a diagram for this. Do you see it here, ladies? Everyone? Online people? This is the greater omentum. Look, isn't it covering? It looks like a fatty layer. It doesn't look like a serous membrane. As I said, that it's white in color because it is very, very rich in fat globules. Yes, ladies? All okay? The greater omentum. Any question about the greater omentum or a lesser omentum? Okay, right? And now, how many layers of omentum are there? You know? So, if you see here omentum, okay, it is like there are almost 4 layers. Okay, so as you can see here, the front part is a double layer, isn't it? It kind of folds like this. No, it folds like this on itself, folds upon itself, and then you have 2 more layers here. So 1, 2, 3, 4 layers over here. The 4 layers of omentum, thus giving us a lot of protection. Okay. Okay. And then one more thing I wanted to tell you about the stomach. There's an exception in the stomach. In the rest of the places, we said that the Muscularis externa is made up of how many layers? Inner, circular, and outer longitudinal, isn't it? But in the stomach, you have an exception. You have to remember this exception. What is the exception? In the stomach, you have an additional layer, okay, which is the what? This oblique layer. So I have a what? Oblique layer, then the circular layer, and then the longitudinal layer. Now you might ask me a question that why do we have this additional layer? What is the reason? The reason for this additional layer is because we want additional protection for the stomach. Because stomach will always, you know, will churn the food. Look at my hands. It's mixing the food, churning the food. It squeezes like this, twists like this, right? So to give it protection so that it doesn't break open, we have an additional protective layer called as the oblique layer, which helps in churning action of the stomach, mixing action of the stomach. Okay, clear everyone? Did you understand why do we have an extra layer? Yes, ladies? Okay. And then there's something called a ruggy. Okay, as you can see over here. What is this ruggy? Okay. Ruggy is like, you know, inside the stomach, we have folds like this. You see the fold like this? Like this. Look at the tissue. These are called ruggy, right? They are the folds in which membrane? In the mucous membrane. So when you look at this, this is the real picture of the stomach. When does it look like this? It looks like this when it is empty. I'm hungry right now. So my stomach would look like this. But the moment as I will eat food, the same ruggy, they'll expand, 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 right? So they help in the what? Expansion of the stomach whenever we are filled with a lot of food. So it gives that extra space to the stomach so that it can expand. Okay, our stomach can hold almost 4 liters. That means 1 gallon of food. Can you believe? Okay, and once it is empty, it collapses on itself. Did you understand the function of ruggy? It's all this easy, isn't it? What is the function of the stomach? We know that the first and foremost function of stomach is that it holds the food for a very long time, almost 3 to 4 hours. You eat something, right? It stores your food for 3 to 4 hours, isn't it? Forget about that eating. You know, imagine if it doesn't store the food, every 10 minutes you have to eat something or the other thing. So storage is the first and foremost function of the stomach. Then breakdown, the chemical breakdown, as well as the churning action, physical breakdown of the food takes place in the stomach, right? Chemically, if you remember, I told you in the first day, protein digestion starts from the stomach, not from the mouth. In the mouth, it's the carbohydrate digestion which takes place. It is the lipid digestion might start because we have the lipase, lingual lipase in the mouth, but no protein digestion in the mouth. It starts from the stomach, the protein digestion, but completes later on in the small intestines. We'll talk about that. Okay, for small intestines. And then one more function of it is once all the churning, chemical breakdown, mixing, and everything has taken place, now the food is a what? A chyme. What is a chyme? It is like a semi-solid. You know, it looks like it's not solid, it's not liquid. Have you seen how talbiha looks like? Do you eat talbiha? Know what is talbiha? Don't know? Okay, you know, Cerelac, when you make food for the babies, you mix it in water. It's not solid, it's not liquid, it's like semi-solid. So chyme looks like that. When it's churned, mixed, partially digested, right? Which is sent to the small intestines. All good, ladies? Are we all okay? No questions? Okay, great. Thank you. Now moving on further, okay, what do we have inside the stomach? Okay, when you might be having a towel at your home, isn't it? The way towel has, you know, if this is your towel, it has small, you know, pits, so you can see, you know, the projections, isn't it? So our stomach also has small pits. We call them as the gastric pits. Okay, and each pit takes us to the gastric gland. Very, very important. So here you should know about each and every cell and what function it has. Cell and what function it has, okay? So let's talk about, for example, the parietal cells. The blue color here. The diagram is from your textbook. Okay? So what is the function of parietal cells? Parietal cells are the cells present in our stomach which produces, first of all, they produce the intrinsic factor. How many of you know that function of intrinsic factor, ladies? Do you remember vitamin B12? We studied about intrinsic factor and vitamin B12. Who will explain me? Does anyone remember what is the relation between intrinsic factor and vitamin B12? We discussed it previously. Raneem, Haifa, Noor, Gada. Ban is not in this class. What happens if we don't eat vitamin B12? Yes, Raneem? Nobody remembers that? Decrease in the RBC. Very good, Haifa. Very good. Anemia. Which anemia, Raneem? Very good. Which anemia? Pernicious anemia. Very good, Rava. Yes, Raneem. Thank you. Absolutely. Right? If you remember chapter blood, we said that we need vitamin. If you remember, I told you that day, we need vitamin B12 for what? For the DNA replication of what? Of the RBCs. Right? If you don't eat vitamin B12, your RBC will not be able to divide its DNA. So that means your RBCs will not divide. And this vitamin B2, if you remember, I told you it's present in the laham, right? When you eat your chicken, when you eat your meat, milk, egg, right? So if you don't eat vitamin B12, your RBCs will not divide. The RBCs will not divide because their DNA cannot do replication because they need vitamin B12. So when you have less RBCs, obviously it will cause pernicious anemia, isn't it? But then we said that this vitamin B12, even if you eat 100 kgs of vitamin B12, it's not going to help you unless and until you have another protein called as what? Vitamin B12 plus intrinsic factor. We did that in blood chapter, this intrinsic factor, right? Then only you can absorb the vitamin B12, right? So this intrinsic factor is produced by what? By your parietal cells. So God forbid people who have ulcers in the stomach, if their parietal cells are damaged, they cannot produce intrinsic factor. They cannot absorb vitamin B12. What else do they produce? Parietal cells. Parietal cells also produce what? HCl, hydrochloric acid. Why do we need hydrochloric acid? We need hydrochloric acid to convert the zymogen like pepsinogen. Remember zymogens? In biochemistry, we spoke about it. The inactive enzymes. Enzymes in the stomach are produced in the form of what? This was a question also in the midterm. Zymogen, like a pepsinogen. Right? So pepsinogen can be converted into an enzyme called as pepsin, which can digest what? Proteins, which can break down the peptide bond of proteins. But in order to convert from here to here, what does it need? HCl, hydrochloric acid, which has a pH of about 1 to 3, right? And this HCl is produced by which cells? Parietal cells. And the other function of HCl, we already spoke about it, right? They can kill the bacteria if, God forbid, we eat bacteria along with the food, or they can denature the proteins of the bacteria, okay, if we eat that, or denature the proteins present in our food. We stop over here, and as you have a next class, we'll finish this in tomorrow. We do have a class. No, we don't have a class tomorrow. We have a class on Tuesday, right? So we'll continue this in our Tuesday's class. Any questions, ladies? Are we all okay? All clear? Alhamdulillah. Okay, all the best for your next upcoming class. Bye-bye, everyone. If you have a question, you can stay back. Attendance, I'll take the attendance from the Zoom. Okay, you just write down your name and give it to me in the paper. Okay. Because did you log into the Zoom?
Yeah.
You did? Okay, just give me on the paper, in the paper. Okay, and remember I used to take the attendance from Zoom. You have a next class now, it's okay. I'll take the attendance from the Zoom, don't worry. Okay, ladies? Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. I think we have a paper over here. Just take one paper. No question.